All right. Well, Happy New Year. I can't believe that today is January 6th, 2022. And we made it. It's season 3 of On the Fly with Kai, where I like to bring you really just people from my tribe that I actually know, either have done business with or know. And I can't believe third season in, we've still not running out of folks. And today is no different. So I'm excited to really introduce to you a gentleman who's just been a lifelong entrepreneur. I think sometimes I was asked the question, are you born that way or did you develop it? And I think a lot of times it's just sort of innate. He's actually an author now, he's a coach, and he's just doing some amazing things out there in that business community. So we're going to bring to you today tips, tricks, and hacks for entrepreneurs with my good friend, Jeff Knott out of San Jose. Hey, how you doing, brother?
Doing great. Awesome day. Awesome day.
Good. Well, hey, I know we kind of like we've sort of done this, right? We've been in connection, and then you've been over to the house for birthday parties, and then
Yeah,
we'll like not find each other for a while, and then our paths will cross again. And so it's fun to be able to connect up with you again, and I'm glad you're here
yes,
today.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to.
Well, tell me about you, because I know, for instance, you said you were an entrepreneur since you were 10 years old. And like I said, the question is, were you born that way? Did you learn that? Were there family history of entrepreneurs? How did you have the bug? It is a
You
bug.
know, that's an interesting good question. I don't have a lot of history in my family of entrepreneurs, business owners at all. And I just remember that when I was a kid, I was 10 years old, and I got a dollar. No, I think I got 50 cents in allowance once a week from parents, right? I think 50 cents, that's not enough to buy the stuff I want to buy. And so my dad said, well, why don't you go do something? I said, like what? He said, well, he when he was a kid, he used to make a little community newspaper. But I said, well, I don't want to do that. I'm do physical stuff. He says, well, why don't you start mowing lawns? I said, okay. So I took the lawnmower and I started going down the street. Can I mow your lawn? Can I mow your lawn? Can I mow your lawn? And I was making decent money just doing yard work for other people, and got into like cars, and so I was got into detailing cars and washing cars, and I did a lot of different things. I used to sell stuff door to door. Just I was all about out there and meeting people and doing things for people. So it's been just in my blood just to take the reins and run with it.
I agree. If you don't like where you're at or you want to change something, just go out and make it happen. I love that.
Right.
Especially now with the internet, you can make anything happen. You can make it
Oh,
rain in about 24, 48 hours.
yeah, you can.
And you've had a long history of many businesses. I know you've owned an insurance company, you've worked in the automotive, you've done most recently a lot of coaching, and you've seen a lot. So you've been able to develop sort of a methodology. But when you go into companies, you say you can identify right away what's
Pretty
working, what's
much.
not working.
Pretty
And
much.
tell me a little bit about what's the number one thing you see as a business coach going into sort of a brick and mortar company? What do you see as the biggest mistake, maybe a couple, three, that people just, it's the scotoma, they don't even see it?
Most of it is that most business owners are working in the business and not on the business. It's easy to do. Most people get into business because they were good at what they did, and so they just jump in the business and start working it. But they don't set up any systems. They don't know anything but what they know about their craft. So whether you're a carpenter, you're a doctor, you're an engineer, or whatever it might be, whatever field you get into that, and you get stuck in doing that. And you may be great at doing that, but the problem is you're not leveraging your time, and you're not leveraging your business and your income. And so it's taking care of the other things in business that it's easy to see. It's very easy to see how people answer the phone, how the people take care of the clients, all that. It's glaringly obvious to me, and I can usually tell that, let's say, just in minutes of walking into a business.
And for the audience that's watching live, you're welcome to comment. We can see your comments on chat on any platform. So feel free to ask Mr. Not any questions. From a broad sweeping category, what are maybe 4 or 5 of the biggest systems that somebody needs to get into place?
Well, first of all is, how are you organizing your business? Who's in charge of what? You got to delegate to people, and people understand who's going to do what in the business. And then you got to set the policies and procedures. Most people, again, just wing it, and you don't want people winging it. You want to be able to control that, make a system work, so that I want a system that I can take a vacation and know my business is going to run and make me money when I'm not there 24/7. So that's probably the biggest thing, that people aren't taking the time to take care of the structure of the business. And that's when the business falls apart. And that's why business owners tend to spend too much time working in the business, right? Just trying to keep the building propped up, and they don't know their key performance indicators, the numbers in their business. They don't even know how much it costs to open the doors every day, along with all the other procedures that makes a huge difference. It's simple stuff. It just takes a little time to put it together.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, I've owned a traditional business and now I own kind of a franchise type business model.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was drowning in that. I didn't know what I didn't know. It was
Yep.
and I much prefer the business I'm in now for 20 years because they do a lot of the heavy lifting, because
Right.
that is a lot of work. And I know you wrote a book about it, called One Week, One Thing. Tell us a little bit about what does that entail and what does that mean?
Well, it's a methodology that I came up with in the process of working with so many business owners over the years and trying to get them to focus on several things a week. There's big things they got to take care of. Yeah, we got to take care of making money, but they just didn't get into taking care of the big things they needed to. So I'd say, okay, let's work on your HR handbook or your marketing plan. What are we going to do this week on these things? And I finally came down to, well, I'm just going to give them one thing, just one thing this week, and let's focus on getting started. A lot of times, that's old adage of getting started is half done. Getting started on something, and that's what the book is all about, is taking the time to spend, say, 30 minutes a day working on this week, the marketing plan. Next week, we're going to work on just the talk tracks in the business, how we answer the phone, how do we talk to the customer, what are the sales procedures, what are we going to do with that, and work a little bit on that every week, dedicated time. And that's the other part of it, is you got to dedicate time to do it. If you don't, it's never going to get done. So it's easy to say, can you take 30 minutes? Oh, I can't. Yes, you can take 30 minutes to do that. And that's the methodology. And the whole idea with the book is also that if you do this one thing each week, by the end of the year, you've touched every corner of your business. It's broken down in small chunks where I don't have to eat the whole elephant at once.
Yeah, and I think as a business owner, we love to procrastinate because it seems like it's going to be worse than it is.
Yeah. Yep.
And then once we do it, we're like, oh, I should have done that. It was fast. It was actually wasn't as painful as I thought.
Yep.
It's like that
Yep.
elephant in the room, as you said.
I still struggle with that myself sometimes. Oh, got to do that.
Yeah, a timer is good for that too, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And I know you mentioned that like you got to come with the end in mind. So especially if you own a traditional business, if you ever want to take a vacation, take care of a loved one, like you even said, sell it at the end. The end in mind is, what is the end game here? Are you going to be able to sell it, retire, talk a little bit about that because you have some great insights on that as well.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually, you begin with the end in mind, as of course one of the 7 habits is one of my favorites. And the thing is, that's what I do when I ask business owners, what do you want to do at the end game? Do you want to some people say, I just love what I do, I want to do this. Okay, then structure your business so you can continue building the houses or painting or running the restaurant or whatever, but set it up so that you can make the money to put your investments away. And when you retire, when someday you say, hey, I'm done, you have a cash cow. Or let's build the business so you can either expand and make more businesses, or we set it up so you have systems so you can walk away from it someday and you can easily sell it. And there's an old adage of, a successful, profitable business is one that works without you. So it depends on what that person wants. And that's how I structure it. You want to work in it? Great. In fact, there was a couple I met many years ago where they bought a business and the husband and wife were running it together a little bit. He was leading it. It was an automotive repair shop, is one of my specialties, of course. Anyway, he got ill 6 months into buying this business. He got ill and he was going to have some surgery and be out for 6 months to a year. And they could have filed bankruptcy. They could, they were looking at all the options. And so what happened was his wife said, well, I'll take over. I'll run the business. She knew nothing about, fixing cars, but he did. Anyway, he comes back a year later. Business is doing great. She says, okay, what do you want to do? You want to run the business? You want to work in the business? Oh, I love fixing cars. I'll run the shop. So he ran the back of the shop and she ran the front. Good team effort. But again, he found out what he wanted to do, and they were able to do that. And they sold the business a few years ago and did very, very well for themselves. So again, everybody's got what's your goal, and I help them get there.
I love that. And I think you said you hit on so many things. It's so many things. You got to go in your strength zone and hire out the rest. I mean, sometimes you can't afford not to. I mean, think about now, he was forced to walk away and it did better than when he was there because again, it's that scotoma. You can't see what you can't see. It's those blind spots as well.
Right.
I know you have a couple of philosophies and sayings, and I love your sayings. So you have one saying about kind of being open to all possibilities. Tell me a little bit about, or the listeners about, what is that?
Well, it's interesting. I have one of my sayings is the universe is conspiring to make me successful whether I choose to participate or not. And it's interesting that when I look back at a lot of things that happened in my life, brought me to where I am today and made me more successful, but I was open to that. And I've learned to be more and more open. And it sounds, I don't want to sound woo woo, whatever, but the idea is yes, there's opportunities everywhere. Everywhere I look, I see opportunities. People say, "Oh, this is a terrible economy." No, it's always a great economy. I have never had a day where I could not go out and make money in my entire life. It's just that you have to be open to the opportunities for you and know where you can find those opportunities. So there's always a way to make a living, put food on the table. Say, well, I can't do that. If you're looking for just a job, no. If you're looking for a profession or a way to help others and you know your own strengths, that makes a big difference also.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter, there was more people that or more businesses that made more money in the downturn, right?
Oh,
The
yeah.
separation between the haves and the have-nots. And during this great pause, the rich just get richer. Why? Because they're able to pivot and be nimble. So
Well,
we are still in the middle of this stupid
well,
COVID.
that
Tell us
reminds me.
about that.
Well, there's something else about that. And someone says, "Oh, I didn't make very much money in this business this year," and I said, "Well, why not? I know people that are making bank this year. In fact, I know some people in 2020 and 2021 made more money than they did in the prior several years.
Me.
And why is that? It's part of it is that we don't choose to do the things we should do. And I look at myself. There are certain things I could have done better because I got distracted or procrastinated or whatever it was. But there's opportunity all over the place, and you have to be willing to do the things others aren't willing to do. And that's probably the biggest thing right there is think about that. Why does somebody else do it and you're not?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a chiropractor succeeding, down this street and you're not, what is the difference there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it is a difficult time, and I don't
Yeah.
want to, belittle the fact that we've
No.
all lost a lot of people here in the last 2
Right.
years.
Yeah.
But you can either be a victim, right, or you can be, hide in the, and I've done that, right. There's been times in my life where I just went away and
Yeah.
hid in the closet.
Yep. Yep.
But now my goal is just to face into things, and these obstacles, you're going to make you stronger.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And that's also, I think, part of it is self-discovery and knowing your strength is the biggest thing. What's that? What gets you in the genius zone? Well, that genius zone where the time just flows like crazy. And if you stay in that and stay focused and know your strengths and your weaknesses, it's a lot easier to get through the tougher times.
And like during the shutdown, right? I found that I like having fun and being creative. So I started making goofy little TikToks to sell my business because it's just been fun. So, if you're bored in your business, I've been doing what I've been doing for 20 years. And if you get bored sometimes, stay within the system, but find something creative that makes you excited. Because the only reason we procrastinate is because we're not passionate about it. You know what I mean? Like if you liked it, you would do it. So
Right.
if you're bored in your business, find something you like and just go nuts. Like your guy at the automotive shop, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. And every business has it, it's true in every business.
Yeah. I know you and you've referenced like already 3 or 4 books, and you and I are big into, we just like had a little library comparison before we went live here today.
Yeah.
How important have has personal to professional development, books. I don't know if you're big into seminars. I take a lot of seminars too, but how important has that been to you and your success? And maybe you could recommend, like, what are you reading right now? So let's have that whole discussion. I love that.
Well, I think it's huge. I used to read a lot of, fiction books and such in high school. I always loved reading, but didn't read much in self-development or anything else, business or whatever. And then I met a couple of people that are big into reading business books in about 1990. And that changed my life because I learned so many different things. And of course, I went to a lot of seminars, learned more and more about myself. But the other thing is that are dealing with people. So you got, if you're going to, we can't do it on our own. So working with people is another thing that I realized, unless I'm going to go to school and spend a lot of time on psychology, we're going to get that. I learned a lot from reading about psychology. In fact, one of my fellow coaches told me many years ago, she said, the best thing you can do for yourself and your clients is read about psychology, understand people more. We're complicated critters, and I still don't understand people 100%. In fact, I can't understand myself 100%, but reading is important. And it's interesting too, that if you're looking for books, all of a sudden the right book will come across your desk. In fact, I'm big on Audible. So I drive less than I used to, but I probably drive, I'm trying to keep it down to 10,000 miles a year, but it gives me lots of opportunity to read Audible books. And it's funny how just the right books come across recommendations. Again, the universe putting me in the right place. But yeah, you've got to find some great books. Look at the top 10 of the Forbes business books is a great place to start if you're looking for good business books. And it doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or if you have 5,000 employees. All the principles are the same and they work the same for you.
Yeah. And
Right.
I need accountability.
Yeah.
Baked into things. Otherwise, the whirlwind, if you've read the 4 disciplines of execution, right? The whirlwind gets in there and you run out of time. So one of the things that I've done, because it's funny about the book thing, I'm not a great reader. And so I do a lot of audibles and kind of a combination of the two. But I started a book club because I was like, I want to read a book a month, but I'm not doing it on my own. And so that book of the month club, sometimes I'm not going to lie, I don't finish the whole thing. But you know what I mean? It's like, it was a great opportunity. And I always have got to bake accountability in something, whether it's your sales, marketing goals, whether it's, you know what I mean? Do you agree with that too?
Well, that's the whole part of being a mentor and a coach to business owners is I'm that person that helps hold them accountable, but also to bounce ideas off. And I get a call from a client the other day. I've got a problem with a customer. I got a problem with an employee. I got even personal, what's happening at home. I just need someone to talk to about it. And we all need to have that person that we can call up and say, I'm having a terrible day. Can you, or I had this issue been bothering me. Can you help me? And I think we all need that, or accountability groups, the mastermind groups. I was in a mastermind group for about 5 or 6 years, and it was phenomenal. It was just a great time to do that.
And I pay big bucks for those associations, because if someone's already done what you want to do and figured it out, it's like, it's the ultimate thing. Like in college or something, you'd get kicked out of school for cheating, and business it rewards you hugely, right? Like I just like cheating off other people's homework. It's great. I love it. You also mentioned a couple things. So let's stay in that little book genre. And if you want information on the book club, go to connectwithkai.com. It's my link tree. We're reading virtual selling, because I almost took it off the list, Jeff, because I'm like, oh, we're going to be out of COVID. And then I'm like, yeah, no, it's probably still a good thing we're reading it. It's like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants that, it's at connectwithkai.com, my link tree. But I think you also talked about journaling, and I feel like, so it's there's 2 missing things that I'm not doing in my business that they say the most successful people do, which is meditate. And I do it sporadically. I need a little help there. But number 2 is journaling. So I write down every morning, what are my top 10 goals, my top 10 gratitudes. And then before I go to bed, I do the exact same thing. But that's not the same as journaling. And I've never quite jumped the shark on that, if you will. So can you talk to us a little bit about, like, how important is that? Even if you don't want to write a book, how important is that journaling piece?
Well, it's a combination of, yes, there's some gratitude. I do all kinds of things in my journal. Sometimes I write I am statements today. What do I feel today? Or what's a question that's bothering me? And I start putting things down. I also journal, and you can journal, there's all kinds of different ideas on journaling. But for me, it's that sporadic sit down and just brain dump. What's my goal for this year? What's going on right now? What's a key thing? Or maybe I read a quote, and what does that mean to me? How does that affect me? There's also journaling cards. I got this thing through, it's called My Best Self, and it's these little journaling cards that comes up with a topic. Like, here's one: if I weren't concerned what other people thought, what would you like to be doing with your life?
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Okay.
I'm going to put it in the chat. What's the name of that thing again?
It's a company called Best Self, and they have journaling cards. They look a little thing like this, and it's got a different topic, and they're different parts of life. There are several different ones that they'll ask you, and personal, family, business, etc. And it's a great way to have something to write down. I don't know what to write down today, and so that's something that it's easy to do. But for me, journaling has helped me to write my book. I was able to mark everything down. I came up with a concept, and then I started writing the chapters in, and finally I met the right publisher and that could help me get it done, and everything just flowed because it was there to kind of noodle that idea. And so I also look at, okay, where I am. Okay, January 1, where am I this year? What's my take stock? How did last year do? What's my goal for the next year? And I can go back and forth and see that. Did I achieve my goal? Maybe I didn't. Why not? Let's talk about how I can change that. So and those timelines are so powerful. And there's the adage of, well, if you don't write down your goal, you're not bound to achieve it, right? But you also kind of manifesting. So in 2013, I wrote down, I am an author. And 2019, I found that in my book, and I went, wow. So it still gives me goosebumps to think about that. So journaling helps you to clear your mind, put things on paper, and then go back and kind of look back over the years, what you've put in there, and say, okay, how have I grown? And that's the other thing. It's that this timeline, you say, wow, things happened. So it's powerful, and there's lots of different ways of doing it, and there's plenty of information on how to journal.
Well, and I'm going to have to look up some more, but I got this one. It's a one-liner journal.
Yeah.
And it's 5 years. So it's kind of fun. Each one has 5 years worth on the same date. So you can go through. So I thought I would start there. I'm starting small, Jeff. I'm like, okay, I'm starting small. I forgot to ask you, what are the one or two or three most influential books that really affected you, these business books? Like for me, it was 1 Minute Millionaire. Like that book just blew my mind. Do you have a couple, three that you would like to mention? I forgot to ask you that. Sorry, sir.
Well, that's all right. Probably the one book that I read and I've journaled and I've read it multiple times is Selling the Invisible by Harry Beckwith. Now, he wrote this book in 1999, and it's a marketing book mainly you would think, for bigger companies, but it's been on the Forbes best 10 books year after year after year after year. It's a whole bunch of vignettes on how these companies overcame problems in their business, and through marketing and management, how they increase their business. And it really is a phenomenal book. It's a fun read. And in fact, I've got it flagged and marked, and every once in a while I'll pick it up when I want to read a good story. And I even quote it in my book, in one story in there. So that's a great book to read. Again, even though it's mostly corporate type stuff, you could use it as a one-man show, or if you have multiple locations or whatever business you're in. It's a great read, and it's fun, and it's fun stories.
I love it. Thank you for that. It's one I have not heard of, and I read a lot.
Yeah.
So we've, as a business owner, we need to do professional development. We need to do sales. We need to do marketing. We should probably have a good, healthy family life too. How do you fit it all in? Like, what in the world? Talk a little bit about, like the balance. Is it overrated? How do you achieve that?
Well,
what the heck is it?
I get that question. Well, how do I live a balanced life? And my response is, well, you'll have about 10 minutes a year where you have a balanced life. I mean, let's face it, life is never totally balanced. It's kind of like sailing. You're constantly, shifting back and forth to get to your final destination. You're not flying straight. Even airplanes, you think, oh, they just fly straight. No, they're going around clouds, they're going storms, whatever happens, but they get there in the end. And so I tell people, for instance, some people, I'm going to buy a business and just relax. So no, I'll buy, write the check and money roll in. I don't care. Even if it's got a system in place and it's a good business, your first few months, you're going to be working hard to make sure that everything goes according to plan. We have health issues that puts you off balance. We have family issues that puts off balance. We got economic issues. It's always, a work in progress. And the goal is to not let the storms put you off kilter. I think that's more balanced of saying, who am I, knowing what I am and where I'm going and what I'm doing is part of that balance. And yes, time with a family, time with friends, time with business. It's going to go back and forth. Sometimes, like my wife right now, she's a school nurse for a private school in town, and she is inundated with we've been living in ground zero with COVID for the last, since it hit, because right in the middle of this stuff. So she's definitely not balanced right now. It's all 12, 15 hours a day of emails and letters and calls and, all of that. So now when all this blows over someday, things will be back on keel, but we have to deal with it as it is and understand that's okay to be out of balance, just as long as we are grounded in what our goals are, and that we try and maintain that relationships not only with our families, but of course with ourselves.
Yeah. And there's a season, right? I mean, there's a planting season and a reaping season. And sometimes, we got to do it. But I appreciate what you're saying. You're never going to, you made me think of like Mother Teresa. I mean, that woman was definitely not balanced. She was all about her mission. And sometimes it takes being obsessed if you want to change the world and do what you want to do. And so I think obsession is sometimes.
Well, and I think I would say obsession, but also you can, she had that passion and all the things. Sometimes she didn't have any money for the drugs she needed for help the poor people, and she had to go out and scrape for that. And she's a great example, but in her heart and her soul, she was in the right place. But while the storms were raging, she knew where she was going. And that's, I think, part of being balanced is finding that tack that you want to stay on. Yeah, stay the course.
I think balance is a little overrated. If you want to do something great, sometimes you just gotta go with it. And I'm sure writing your book, you were super passionate, and the hours when you're in your wheelhouse, the hours just click by, and all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh wow, I've done all that.
Yeah. So yep.
It gets easier. So I know we want to conclude here. Is there any final thoughts that you have that you want to share before we finish out this? Any final thoughts on 2022?
I've added on my business card, and it's kind of my mantra for the basis of my book and my business is success simplified. And it's in reading Good to Great by Jim Collins. He was asked, well, what's the difference between a great business and a good business? What does it take? Does it take a lot of extra work? And he said, no, the difference between the good and the great is the small things. It's focused on doing the right things and not doing other things. And it's really pretty simple. And that's really what it is. I look at life and business, and it's simple stuff. As long as you continue to do the right things and focused, success comes very easy. It's not without work, but it really is simple.
And your book is 1 week, one thing. Is that correct?
That's correct. All
right.
There you go.
There you go. And then if anybody wanted to continue this conversation, what would be the best way for them to be able to reach you after this interview?
They can, we can connect on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. And if you want to contact me by email, it's simple. The easiest one is Jeff Nott, JEFFNOTT @live.com, LIVE.com. That's the easiest.
Great. Well, hey, I just want to say thank you so much for your time here today. It's been a pleasure. I knew this was going to be an easy interview. You and I could chat for hours,
Oh yeah,
but I just want to thank you again for being on the show and wish you an amazing 2022. Appreciate you.
appreciate you, and the same to you.
Awesome. Well, hey, everybody, that was another great episode of On the Fly with Kai. Can't believe we're into season 3. That was episode 48, where we meet you every Thursday right here at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, all time zones in between, where we really interview somebody who's been successful in business, who can actually shave some time off your learning curve with some great tips, tricks, and hacks for entrepreneurs. So thanks so much. Take care, take charge. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.